Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and yes, as the title suggests, I've touched a Switch OLED and I liked it, yes. And, I could do a preview of the hardware and say, oh, well, and this and that and things and that. But I've just done the Metroid preview, and it sort of felt a bit weird to have two of the same video. So instead, I've got Mr. John.
Hey, that's me.
And Mr. Xeon.
Whoa, it is me.
And they're going to ask me some questions about the OLED, and they're going to be kind of like the surrogate audience, if you like. They're going to be you asking me questions about the OLED. So take it away, one of you.
I've got a question.
Oh, Mr. John, go ahead.
So whenever I get a handheld that's slightly larger, like 3DS to 3DS XL, there's always an adjustment period with the screen size, because you're so used to the smaller screen. But I know the OLED's only a little bit bigger. But was that still a drastic difference to you, seeing as you use your Switch every single day? Was there some sort of adjustment to getting used to the larger screen?
Honestly, no. I mean, the first time I picked it up, I was like, wow, this screen is a bit bigger. And I enjoyed it, but then after a while, yeah, I just adapted really, really quickly, actually. Don't get me wrong, it's nice not to have the bezel there, but it's not like a world of difference. I mean, don't want to downplay it, but yeah, adjustment time was a maximum 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. And it's the same sort of chassis as the regular Switch, right? So it's not like a giant change in size, it's just like an inch or so?
It's not even that, to be honest. It's a tiny man. I wasn't actually allowed to compare my Switch with it side by side. And that's why a lot of the footage that you're going to see is the same footage. In fact, all the footage you're going to see is the same stuff that we had in the Metroid preview, because that's the only way we were allowed to show it, unfortunately. Weren't even allowed to rotate it slightly. But honestly, it just felt like holding a Switch. It really did. I think there may be half a centimeter difference or something. May not even be that. It's really nominal. Really nominal.
And so I'm assuming then that means that did you notice like a weight difference either? Like, did it feel heavier, or was it really hard to tell at that point, I suppose? I
could barely tell, to be honest. I mean, as I'm sure you guys know, I've got guns. I've got guns for days. So I'm used to carrying. No, I'm not. But it honestly, it felt pretty much the same. It was, I know it is technically a little bit heavier, but it's to such a small degree, at least for an adult, that I didn't notice it at all, really.
Wow. I guess because you couldn't compare it, it's hard to really say how much better the colours are. But I know the Vita came out in like 2012, a long time ago now. But it's still special to return to that device and see how pure the blacks are. And I know you played Metroid Dread, so did those blacks stand out to you? Like, I remember in some games the title screen was sort of merged with the bezel of the Vita. It looked beautiful. Was there anything that sort of stood out colour-wise with Dread?
Nothing immediately, but then it was the first time I played Dread, so I didn't really have anything to directly compare. So, don't get me wrong, I did manage to see the home screen briefly, because that's how they handed it to me. And the home screen, the contrast, it is definitely significantly greater than on the standard screen. But what I would really need to do is to see a game I'm super familiar with. But obviously, unfortunately, I did not have that opportunity, which was a bit of a shame.
Mm-hmm. So were there any games that you, like, now that you've played one of these, are there any games in particular that you, like, when you get a system like this someday for yourself, that you instantly want to go check out and see, like, what how different it looks, That's a good question, actually. I don't know if it's just because I've got Metroid on the brain, but Hollow Knight with those severe, severe contrast, black and white and loads of grayscale stuff in there as well, and color, obviously. But those stark contrasts, I think they are going to pop like nobody's business. I mean, they already look damned good on the standard Switch. I think on the OLED, it's going to be popping.
I really want to see Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 8, because you've got the pure black sky behind you, you've got the vibrant rainbow panels, that's going to look amazing. I do have another question though. My Switch lost its kickstand a while ago. It's just, I've got this little hole where the kickstand used to be. I know one huge thing about the OLED is the kickstand no longer sucks. So can you tell us a bit about this kickstand? Did you enjoy your time with it?
I am so glad you asked me about the kickstand, because I was genuinely, like, that was one of the first things I looked at. Yeah, oh my word, I was, like, properly chuffed by it. It's all metal. It's coated, but it is definitely metal. Like, it's, I say it's cold to the touch. It's technically not cold, but it sucks the heat out of your fingers as though it were cold because it's conductive. And yeah, the whole thing is metal. It feels super solid, and the hinges are these really beastly looking things. I didn't get a proper chance to use it because they were just like, oh no, it's all handheld, which was a bit of a shame. I don't quite know why they were so cagey about it, but you've got to abide by the rules. But I was able to, sort of play around with it. And yeah, the hinge it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it's actually weirdly refreshing playing a game on it because, as I say, it's kind of cold to the touch. So your hands don't get as sweaty because it's got a metal back.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you can adjust the angle too. With the current kickstand, you put it down and you're kind of stuck with what you get. Whereas now you can adjust it, get it to the right angle so everyone can see. It's going to be a good old time.
It is, yeah. And the SD card now goes in sideways.
Oh.
Strange.
But it's still underneath the kickstand, so, it's a very little consequence.
Could you tell if the kickstand was removable still as well?
Oof, I didn't try, but given the hinges that it has, I'm sure you could disassemble it. That would be that would be done at your own risk, but I don't think it's designed to be disassembled by the user. So I don't think it can be removed in the same way. So no. But then it doesn't really need to be.
Okay.
Sure. Did like the notches, so to speak, did it kind of feel like a 3DS screen, when you're kind of like clicking that into place?
There are no notches. No, it's infinite. I think what they call infinite variance.
Ah. And did that feel reliable, I suppose, then too?
Yes, very, very reliable. Like, I think, sort of the original kickstand, it wobbled a lot. It really did. But this, it just feels like they've got the center of gravity on the console or whatever it is that means that it's stable. It feels like they've got it bang on. It feels, I don't want to say rock solid because you can just literally lift it up. But no, as long as you don't move it yourself, it's not going anywhere. I'm sure if you were to take it on a train or, a plane or something like that, it would have no issues whatsoever.
I wonder if either of you guys have seen this before, but Nintendo a while back made a kickstand, like USB kind of adapter,
I remember that, yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, so I have one of those. I just pulled out my desk or pulled out my drawer and tried to find it, and I can't find it right now. But I wonder if it's like that, because I have one of those, and it does kind of exactly what you're saying. It doesn't have notches. It just kind of slowly moves in and out, and it's really nice. But yeah, I'm excited to see how that compares then to that. But because that's really smooth, the adapter.
It's a very smooth motion. It was lovely. At the end of the day, well, I was about to say I don't know how much I would use it, but one of the things that I've often wanted to do is to be able to let my, let my partner play on the PS4 or something, or we have something on the TV. And handheld is okay, but it's just not that comfortable for me for long periods of time, certainly not when I'm sat on a sofa. So what I'm really looking forward to is just placing on the arm of the sofa, and I'm perfectly confident with its ability to stand up on that. Admittedly, I've got quite a large arm on my sofa, but even then, I think I'm really looking forward to that, actually, because I'm getting one, obviously.
So this question, I feel like, has a very straightforward answer. But going from like DS Lite to DSi, I think the big difference for a lot of people is the textures of the buttons and the actual device itself. Like, do you want mushy ones or clicky ones? But with Switch Lite to Switch, both Switch to Switch OLED, we're technically going from Joy-Con to Joy-Con. Like, a Joy-Con is a Joy-Con. We're going to have the same sort of feeling buttons no matter what. But just to double check, does this still feel like a regular Joy-Con?
Yeah, they just feel like regular Joy-Con, to be honest. They're a different color. Maybe there's slight variance. I would be really keen to crack one open when I actually own one and, properly have a look inside and see whether there are any slight differences. But, sort of by and large, I would say if you put a blindfold on, you wouldn't know this Joy-Con from any other.
Okay, so there's not really that that iterative system leap. Like, still kind of feels the same. But I suppose the actual console itself must feel a bit different, like when you're pressing the volume buttons and the power button.
Yeah, I didn't actually fiddle with the volume button, but the power button is it's quite different. It doesn't feel... It simultaneously feels more secure and not as stiff. Not that the old one really felt stiff at all, but that's the only thing I can think to compare. And as I've already mentioned, the metal kickstand is nice and cooling on the fingers. The vents are under there as well, under the kickstand. The only other thing is the bezel. I don't quite know why they've decided to do this, but the bezel is gloss. Like, very glossy. Like, I would say even glossier than the piano black DS Lite, seeing as you brought it up. So...
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest, because your fingers will, well, your thumbs specifically will touch that, but it's such a small part as well that I don't really see it being a problem.
So my real question with that now then is, do you think the gloss, like the plastic quality, compares to the DS Lite, or do you think it compares to the Wii U?
Oh, it's higher than both, I would say. I don't know
That's
whether it's
good.
just because it's...
Oh, man.
It may just be because it's a smaller part, so it feels stronger, or it needs to be stronger. But it just feels like, yeah, it just feels like a good quality plastic, to be honest. I'm not a plastic expert, I'm ashamed to admit, but yeah, I'd say it feels good.
I mean, I'm not a plastic expert either. Maybe I should become one. But I remember... the moment that I found out, how easily the Wii U scratched and fingerprinted, I was a very sad boy, and I think all of us were very sad people when we came to that realization, and hopefully consoles don't use those kind of plastics anymore, because I think the PS4 even used it for its side panel, and the Xbox One sure did as well.
Yeah,
and, yeah.
I would say that, I mean, don't get me wrong, the gloss isn't a big deal, but I really would have preferred matte. I don't really like glossy plastic, full stop. So, yeah, I definitely would have preferred matte, but it's a small concession.
This is something that I think we can answer better in our own environment, considering you're at a preview event, but they bolstered better audio quality. Could you really hear that at the event, or is that something we have to answer a bit later on?
That would have to be something we answer later on, unfortunately, because I could hear everything, absolutely, but I was in a big open room with very few other people for safety reasons, and so things were echoing around. It wasn't the kind of soft furnishing environment that you would expect in order to, to normally play these types of things. It's, again, I really don't know. They offered me headphones, I turned them down, but it was, yeah, again, I'd have to compare side by side. This is one of the limitations. I don't know why they, specified that we couldn't, but we weren't allowed, so, gotta adhere to the rules.
And just to clarify, too, I think I already know the answer to this, but was there any point where you felt that the system was running faster or I guess better in that regard? And I know you've never played Metroid Dread on a regular Switch console before, so that's probably hard to even answer, but
yeah, I would say almost impossible. I'm not familiar with Metroid Dread because it's not out. So I wouldn't really be able to tell. I would say I don't know if it's, sort of if it is an upgrade or if it's just because my Switch is getting on a bit. It did seem to be running a little bit cooler, but I couldn't say that for certain. I'd be really interested to actually put it through its paces, but I think that Metroid was driving it pretty damn hard. I mean, not like out of this world, but, sort of for a handheld mode game, I didn't hear the fans at all, and it seemed to be just doing really rather well from it.
How long did you get to play Metroid for, or basically how long did you get to use the console for?
I got to use the console for about an hour and 40 minutes, roughly, between an hour and a half and
awesome.
that. And, well, all I can say with certainty is the system didn't say it was low on battery, and I don't know how, I assume it was fully charged when I got it, but Admittedly, I didn't check. I didn't think anything of it, to be honest, but I don't think the Metroid... Well, at the very least, I can say the Metroid for an hour and a half won't get an OLED flat. That's all I can say, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess with this console, we shouldn't be expecting any kind of performance leap. It is literally a Switch with an OLED and a few quality of life improvements, and for what it is, that's cool. So, seeming as that's pretty much what it is, did you finish your session, go home to your regular Switch, and start to envy anything from that session? Or were you like, I think I can live with this? Do you think it's essential for the OLED?
I don't think it's an essential purchase, no, but I don't think it's trying to be advertised as such. Coming back to my original Switch, it was a bit like... The screen definitely felt smaller, but not by a huge margin. And again, I adapted to it very quickly, in the same way as going, from my standard Switch to my Lite. I think it would be really pertinent to compare the Lite to the OLED as well for like the extreme difference. But yeah, it wasn't major by any stretch. I did feel that maybe the color of the screen was maybe a little bit less warm, because my current Switch, I remember my original Switch, it was quite cold. The whites were quite cold. And my current Switch, the whites are a little bit warmer. I don't know why. Maybe the phosphor is slowly burning off or something. Who knows? That's happened with other things I've owned. But the OLED felt ever so slightly cooler. It felt very pure white. It didn't feel cold, but it didn't have that slight warmth to it. But it could have been the environment that I was in, because the lighting there, your eyes adjust and adapt and things like that. So I couldn't say with any certainty whatsoever, but I'd love to have a look at them, like the OLED and my old Switch, and actually compare them side by side and see whether there is a slight change in color temperature. I think that would be really interesting.
It'd be fun to compare it to the Vita too, because we have gone nearly a decade in OLED technology. I do want to see how far it's come, because the Vita still is impressive today.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you guys would like to ask?
I think that's about it. I mean, it is exciting if you want a better quality Switch screen.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the be-all and end-all of iterative upgrades. It's still a Switch at the end of the day.
It is, absolutely. Well, there you have it. That is my opinions on the OLED. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one properly and giving it a proper, really run through with games I'm super familiar with. But, I got to use one, and I really liked what I had with it. I do think it's, as John said, it's an incremental upgrade. It's not going to be necessary. But if you need a new Switch, or you just need a Switch, I think this is probably, if you want to do it properly, and you're going to be using it, using the actual screen rather than plugged into the TV all the time, I think this is definitely something you should absolutely consider. Just take everything into account, including cost, and you'll come up with the right answer for you, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you check out that subscribe button's contrast levels or something. And be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.
I'm going to use my Switch OLED to view pictures of Xeon and see him in beautiful, popping color.
You know what? I'm so excited to play the OLED, so that way I can just crank the contrast up all the way. I love contrast. It's my favorite color.